My name is Amelia Whelan. I'm the founder of the Breakaway Movement, and this is my homie, Sean Little.
Peace, y'all. My name is Sean Little. I'm an OG member of the Breakaway Movement. I've been down since before BAM launched, and I've been working with the organization since November of 2019.
We want to thank you for being here with us and watching this video. We originally filmed this video in December of 2020, and we are now refilming this video in April of 2021. And we're super grateful to be here and have you show interest in the Breakaway Movement.
In full transparency, one of the main reasons that we originally filmed is because we've received some less than favorable press on the internet, and we felt like it was important to show up and show our faces and share our voices as well. Coincidentally, we are aware that soon there will be another article published, which we don't anticipate will cast Breakaway Movement in a positive light, and we also don't anticipate that that will be the last piece of its kind.
We're here today to share a bit more of our story and our perspective, and we trust that it will reach those who resonate with who we are and the work that we're doing.
Again, as Amelia shared, we're here to share some of our backstory. And again, we trust that if you resonate with who we are and the work that we're doing, this will be valuable for you, especially if you've come across some of the constructive criticism published about us, which can be readily found online.
Of all of the criticism that BAM has received, constructive or not, I want to own up to a few obvious issues that have existed within BAM, especially throughout our first year as an organization. Okay, number one is there was a lot of misleading information about the multi-level marketing aspect of Enagic. Number two, there was a lot of inauthentic social media influencer flex culture, as one of our critics put it. Number three, there were a lot of BAM members who promoted the illusion of getting rich quick and easy. Okay, now here's the spoiler alert. I agree with those criticisms, and I'm grateful for the people both inside and outside of BAM who brought those issues into the light. Thank you for helping us see our organization more clearly and honestly, and BAM is truly better because of you.
Now let me clarify our intentions going forward. We want to briefly touch on the main issues that Amelia mentioned. We want to share some of the behind-the-scenes reality about Breakaway Movement, especially in that first year that we've received a lot of criticism for. And we want to share more just about ourselves personally, some of the main leaders within the Breakaway Movement organization. So, Amelia, help me understand how and why Breakaway Movement was misleading about the multi-level marketing aspect of Enagic.
First, I will say that Enagic is a multi-level marketing opportunity, if that's something you feel comfortable saying. And in the beginning, I did not refer to it as an MLM, mainly because the verbiage and the language that I learned from my uppers in the business or my mentors wasn't at all focused on it being an MLM, but more so really focusing on the differences that made Enagic, so different from other multi-level marketing companies. So I kind of just accepted that verbiage as my own and began to use that. And now, a year and a half later, I'm learning that there are different ways to view this opportunity. A few weeks ago, I was on a leadership call with Enagic, and they themselves don't even refer to Enagic as an MLM, but rather, a company that is a network marketing company, which gives commission off of direct and indirect sales.
Here's what I think the concern is, and here's what I think the tension is even for us communicating in this space. It feels like, from some of the constructive criticism that we've received, that there's an intention to act as if Enagic is not multi-level marketing, because multi-level marketing does have, in my experience, a negative connotation.
Absolutely.
Is there any, what's your intention with maybe blurring the line with the multi-level marketing thing? And maybe what's even your intention now in calling it a multi-level marketing opportunity when Enagic says that it's not?
Right. Yeah, and I agree so much with what you said. Like I said, I took on that verbiage from my mentors, from my uplines, because at the time it relieved a lot of the personal bias that I had around multi-level marketing companies in the past. I've worked for two personally, so clearly can see the drastic difference between the Enagic compensation plan and the business structure as compared to these previous companies that I've worked with in the past. Now, personally, I'm just so grateful to work for Enagic and to share the products and the Kangen water machines and be a part of this movement and this mission that if people feel more comfortable calling it an MLM, I'm down. I'll support that. I'd rather show up as someone, as a living proof of, a successful person in this industry who can help to reshape that negative stigma around MLMs, which so many of us carry with us.
So you're willing to call it a multi-level marketing opportunity because inherently in the payout structure, you receive commission for your direct sales. And also, since I bought from you, you receive commission on my indirect sales for a time period.
Absolutely.
So if that's what qualifies this thing as a multi-level marketing opportunity, so be it.
Sure. So be it.
Okay, thank you for the exchange, for your thoughts, for your feedback. I hope that's valuable for y'all, and we'll look forward to fielding any questions or constructive criticisms that we receive on into the future. Now, let me say before we move on, something that I found incredibly compelling, which actually led me to starting my own Enagic business after using an Enagic water ionizer for years and years. Here's something that I thought was very compelling. The only qualification, the only requirement to become an Enagic distributor for life is to own one of their machines. One-time purchase, lifetime distribution rights. Now, in addition to getting the product, getting all of the benefit of the product, you also will earn an increasing percent of commission for every direct sale that you make for life. So you get the product, you get the benefit, you get the direct sales, you get the benefit of more commission, and you can also recruit other distributors, cultivate them, develop them, support them, and you earn a percent of their indirect sales commission for a limited time period.
So for example, the person who brought me into the business, who I originally purchased my first Kangen water machine from, they no longer make any commission off any direct sales or indirect sales, that are made in my organization. And for years now, not only have I far surpassed them in ranking in Enagic, but I've made far more money than they've ever made in the company, just simply because I went out of my way to grow such a large organization and make so many personal direct sales. So just another example of how, for me, in my eyes, it's a stark difference between the standard MLM pyramid scheme, where there's one person on the top who's always benefiting off every single sale made in the organization beneath them.
Okay, dope. Thank you for that explanation. We won't continue to go into details, but if you are interested in better understanding the deep dive into the Enagic compensation plan video and what we have found is a huge distinction between Enagic and other MLMs and really the most compelling business opportunity that we've come across, we have a link to our updated compensation plan video below. Now, Amelia, I want to talk about inauthentic flex culture within the Breakaway Movement. Just get your perspective on it. Just tell me about your relationship and history with your own social media accounts.
I started my first Instagram account when I was 14 years old, so over a decade ago, 13 years ago. To say that I had no idea what I was doing at the time is fair. I literally downloaded it. I told Sean yesterday, thinking it was a photo editing app. So eventually, like all of my peers at the time, started to realize that, cool, this is like a place that you can build something of yourself, establish a brand or a company or market a product or whatever. And I was in college. I started this social media account, for my personal kind of like lifestyle, and I was transitioning into a plant-based diet and really passionate about veganism and travel and living in Hawaii and working with coral reefs and the ocean. So I thought this could be a cool space to share, a combination of my passions and my lifestyle and what I'm learning about and getting educated on. The internet is a harsh and permanent place, and many of the claims or the ideas that I shared or thoughts that I had 5, 10, 13 years ago can now,
as a child, as an adolescent,
as a young teenager,
totally.
Can now easily be found on the internet, and then used against me, essentially to cast me in a light that isn't true to who I truly am. But with the growing audience, obviously created the opportunity for more feedback and opinions and thoughts and ideas, about me from others who I literally don't even know. So it's played a huge role in the adjustments and some of the improvements that I've made personally, but we've made as a company over the last year and a half.
And I think two cents that I have. I didn't have a computer in my house till I was 18 years old. I'm 10 years older than you, maybe 9. So I just find it fascinating, almost as just being from a different era in regards to social media, technology, whatever. I think something that I want to bring into this space is like, what does it feel like to be the human, to be the person behind how people perceive the brand or the following or the whatever? Because we live in such an interesting culture that like we, as a culture, whether you do individually or I do, we value notoriety, popularity, big followings. Like we really think that that is of utmost value. And so we're kind of obsessed with it. But I think my question to you is, like, you're a human being on the other end of that. What has it felt like just to be a person?
I mean, right now, if you were to look me up on social media in this current day, I don't have any of my accounts on the internet right now because it got to a point where I felt that personally I didn't have the tools like in my tool belt to be able to overcome and be able to like carry on with all of the online messaging and negativity and criticism. So yeah, I've actually been taking a break personally. However, Breakaway Movement is still on the internet. We're improving, we're growing in each day. And I was speaking to you about this yesterday, but Breakaway Movement kind of feels like a mask I wear. And if people have feedback or constructive criticism about Breakaway Movement, that's cool. We can handle that because we have a team. We have people who are passionate about improving the business and correcting our wrongdoings. And so that's manageable, but you know.
Kind of arm's length. It's not you.
Totally.
It's the brand. It's the business you own.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, you know, taking the mask off and being on my personal platforms and sharing videos of myself and my life and who I am, when that constructive criticism or that criticism comes in, it's harder to, you know, it's harder to swallow because it's me. It's criticizing me as a person, you know, like I said, through people who have probably never ever met me in, you know, in the physical flesh. So yeah, it's been tough. It's taught me a lot, and I'm grateful for all the learning experiences. And if anything, it's brought me to a point where, you know, I realize more so than ever how important it is to, to be able to have those tools needed. Therapy's been a huge one for me. That's been incredible. And taking time off when needed has been amazing. So it all feels to kind of work together with Breakaway Movement and the brand that I've created personally.
Yeah. And that's just what I want to say.
Please.
Yeah. Again, just like as an OG, like if you won't say something to someone in the street, maybe just think about not saying it at all. You know, like Taylor Swift, shout out. She said, if you say that in the street, it's a knockout. If you say it in a tweet, it's a cop-out. You know, like, so my big intention within BAM and just my life is like to be purposeful about the actual human relationships that I cultivate. And somehow the internet so often disrupts that. So just as a reminder for you guys who are watching, who are interested in Breakaway Movement, be aware of perception and be aware at the end of the day that like everyone within BAM, Amelia, myself, the rest of our core team, any successful person within BAM, we're people. Trying to figure this thing out a day at a time, build businesses, build lives that we care about, support teams with people who we care about, and a lot of maybe the malicious stuff that exists on the internet. If you isolate a post or if you isolate a behavior, it can be much more justified. But when you contextualize any of those errors, which are errors, and we own that, into a human being who's living a life, doing something new, and trying to build something, I think that's a much more appropriate way to view, you know, some of the more wild claims that are made about us. So there you have it.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And that Taylor Swift quote is remarkable. I will keep that in my notebook for a later date. Switching gears a bit, you know, all of this being said, I do want to acknowledge there are people in Breakaway Movement who have done the Instagram social media flex, and I'm not really for it. And the reality is a lot of these people have come in without the previous years of hard work and trial and error and experience as an entrepreneur, and what they think is maybe the quickest thing to achieve the success and the validation from the people following them online is to kind of jump on that train and promote and portray a lifestyle or a financial income that isn't actually like authentic for where they're at right now at that point. And yeah, it's not something that I personally align with. If you do follow me on my platforms or have in the past, you'll see it's not something I do personally as the owner of the company. But all of that being said, it's not something that's even possible, nor something I want to do, to be able to control every single piece of content that over 4,000 people put out onto the internet every single day.
I think it's interesting in this regard. I agree with you. The flex is not the vibe.
Yeah.
what I found interesting about observation of the flex is like people share things on social media every single day. Consequential things and inconsequential things. People share the meals that they're eating, the people that they're with, the places that they go to. And so while I don't think an inauthentic flex is the vibe, is the move, I do understand why if someone makes a $1,000 sale, and maybe that's the first $1,000 sale they've ever made in their entire life. Like, I get that they would be stoked about that and that they would want to talk about that. I posted about a $30,000 month that I did. For a long time, I was in social work and nonprofit, and I made $25,000 in a year. So in addition to sharing about things that I care about, I shared about that because I thought that it was substantive. I wasn't popping bottles and, making it rain, but it was a meaningful thing for me to share. So again, I think to your point, where it goes out of line is if you're, and this is for you within Breakaway Movement, and if you're interested in Breakaway Movement and you're tracking with people who they're doing this is what I want to say at least. If your claims or your posts or your stunts are inauthentic to who you are and where you are, that is whack. Stop that. And again, to your point, like, it's taken you a long time to create the success and the independence that you have.
Absolutely.
And a lot of days, weeks, months, years of no money or a very little money.
Yep.
And I would say that's the same for me as a multifaceted entrepreneur for many years who's done many things and just tried to figure out work that I could do that I thought was meaningful and helpful and impactful that would allow me to live a life that I think is meaningful, helpful, and impactful. We have a lot of people who have joined us and this is their first independent endeavor. This is their first entrepreneurial endeavor. So it's almost like they have a larger platform to not only make the same mistakes that we have made as we've done our things, but to be seen and to be criticized for those mistakes. So again, I think it's all important to put into context. But 100% agree with you. The inauthentic social media flex is the worst. And if you're doing that, and especially if you're doing that and you're within BAM, please stop.
For us, we can continue to find the balance between, providing education and leading through example, personal example, and, sharing this education and information with these distributors, but also wanting to celebrate the small wins, the successes. It takes a lot to be your own entrepreneur, to step off the paved path that many of us walk on. And so we try to do our best to maintain within guidelines while also just wanting to be friends and supporters and, in celebration of all of the small triumphs along the way.
I would love to hear from you what you think, what your response is about members within Breakaway Movement promoting the illusion of getting rich quick.
Well, like I said, for me personally, that wasn't, the circumstance. 10 years essentially, over 13 years being on social media, 7 years as an entrepreneur now. That being said, there are people in the business and in our organization through Breakaway Movement who have reached ranks in a far shorter time frame. Does that make sense? A much shorter time frame than I was ever able to reach those ranks or, those certain income brackets. And maybe that's because they have the education and the mentorship through Breakaway Movement, which I did not have on my journey. But the reality is, it's for me, and I can only speak from personal experience, it was not a get-rich-quick thing. And you mentioned before, the years of making no money at all. I was doing private holistic health coaching for years from my home in Kauai, making $20,000 a year for 2-3 years in a row, before I was able to ever even come to a place to be able to launch a business like the Breakaway Movement. When I launched the Breakaway Movement, I had $10,000 to my name. So it absolutely, as an active Enagic distributor already. So for me, it was a slow and a gradual process, but I'm so grateful it was because it's years of trial and error, that I now am able to learn from and utilize, as the owner of this business.
A lot of the criticism that we've received was primarily focused on year one of the Breakaway Movement. So give me some behind the scenes about what was going on in your life and the people within the organization of the Breakaway Movement. What was happening year one?
Well, first, it feels appropriate to share my initial vision when creating the Breakaway Movement, which primarily was, to create a space that was entirely different than the mentorship program that I was already involved in through Enagic. So as I mentioned before, the person who sold me their machine, they had a small organization, a small community of people who, were actively distributing Kangen machines. It wasn't a community that I resonated with in the slightest. They would not speak about the health benefits of the water. They never even would mention the machines. It was solely being promoted for the compensation and the Enagic, the potential with the business structure. So talk about the flex and the flashing checks and the Yeezys and the helicopters and whatever.
Which I want to say, many Enagic teams lead with that. They lead with the money, they lead with the income, they lead with the flex. You don't find out that they're affiliated with Enagic until you're 70% of the way into discovering. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which again, for me, and we haven't shared much of the story, but that doesn't resonate with me because it's all product based. It starts with a valuation of the product because of the value that the product has brought to me and my family's life.
Absolutely.
Okay, continue.
Thank you. Yeah, so, I purchased the machine for the therapeutic benefits of the water alone.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to have a machine in my home. I knew I needed to be drinking better, tap water essentially. So I purchased a Kangen machine. I'm running with this organization. I'm not vibing with them at all. And I'm thinking, well, this has an amazing potential. And I've already spent X amount of years establishing myself on the internet. I had a blog, a website, social media platforms, Facebooks, all of that. So I saw the potential in it, but I knew this wasn't the community that I wanted to be associated with in the public eye or personally. So my intention when creating Breakaway Movement was really to kind of call in all of the other health conscious, environmentally conscious, mindful people who wanted to promote the product first, share the water with families, with individuals who would benefit from them, and also emphasize on, the sustainability, the zero waste opportunities with Kangen machines. And then, just a quarter of this, of the mixture was the incredible compensation plan.
For sure.
To be able to, I wanted to travel, I wanted to continue to work from home. I wanted to explore and, live overseas. And I knew that, working one job in one environment just wasn't sustainable for the lifestyle that
So
I
that's
wanted.
the intention.
Yeah.
So you set out to build the website or the platform
Yeah.
that Breakaway Movement is. Who did it? How did it happen?
Cool. So I was distributing Enagic, slow but steady, starting off. I had just moved to Bali, Indonesia. I'd studied yoga over there. I did my yoga teacher training, and I knew that this was like an opportunity with Kangen. I was making a few sales here and there. You're making sales to people, and then they have questions, and you're communicating, and it felt like there was a much more effective way to do this. So I talked to one of my best friends who was super tech savvy and kind of really into like this, this world of the online communities, the websites, the platforms, the apps, things like that. And I said, I've got this $10,000, maybe $11,000. Like, do you think I could build something out with it to start a website or a platform or some kind of community so that I don't need to be individually communicating with each person myself? My sister was an elementary school teacher at the time. And maybe she had just recently moved to Colorado. So I was living in Bali, my older sister's living in Colorado, my best friend's living in California. Yeah, it was literally 3 people on different sides of the world. And whenever we could get an hour or something that overlapped throughout the day between 3 different changing time zones, we would work together to, first establish Facebook groups, a website, a community, and then create educational content. There was no blueprint. There was no plan. It was just more of like, I personally see that this would have benefited me a year ago as I was working with this community that really didn't have much to offer me as an individual. So it was just every day, a new filling out order forms or answering a question from someone, I'd think, that'd be a great question to have filmed in a video, or that'd be cool to have resources provided for this specific area. It was, a day by day, complete one task at a time, hear feedback from people who were, within our organization. And I had no idea that Breakaway Movement would, grow to be the community and the organization that it is. I had no idea.
Sure. And I think I just want to ask that and hear from you on it because I think there's, again, a perception that there was some grand scheme and malicious intent to manipulate and deceive and to become rich in the process.
Totally.
And again, in my mind, in my journey as an entrepreneur, who has time for that? Who even has time for that?
So true.
It's a day at a time, and you're like, a phrase that I often use, you're drinking from a fire hose, and you're trying to build the business and sustain the business and grow the business and make sure that it has what it, and so this again, I think one of the perceptions that exists in the internet space, and if you're with us, maybe you've seen this, is that there was something much different going on behind the scenes. So thanks for bringing that into the light.
Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys for rocking with us up to this point. We're gonna push to conclude. But again, Amelia, in mind of someone who's watching this, who's interested in the Breakaway Movement, getting to know you more, getting to know the organization more, what else do you wanna bring into the light in April of 2021, whether it's about yourself as the owner of Breakaway Movement or just the organization in general?
Great question. I think the first thing that comes to mind is just like for you watching to know that I'm a person with imperfections, and you know, although I may be the owner of this business, I truly know and accept that the business is a reflection of me as a person, and if I carry imperfections within me, so will the business. And this is something that I am very aware of and working on daily, and the company is evolving and improving and changing in many ways. And probably my biggest takeaway from the last year and a half, almost 2 years in business now, is, you know, the need for more infrastructure within our organization and our core group of employees. And that's really like the biggest task for me in the last year, is to get closer to achieving this goal.
Two things come to mind in response to that. One, if you're a regular human being with imperfections and you're interested in, again, who we are and what we do, there's space for you to stumble into developing as a human being and developing as an entrepreneur. So you are home, you know, here in this space. And then, the second thing I think is just, you know, organizationally, I would love to hear more about that. You can speak to it. I might be able to throw in, you know, 2 cents on it just as someone who works with the organization. What are some of those improvements that you've sought to lead in or make in the last year?
The first one comes to mind, as I mentioned before, is I had no idea, you know, the growth that this company would experience in less than 2 years. So the first infrastructure that needed the most, you know, work and attention was our support team, for sure, because 4,000 people from all around the world, global distributors from every country in the world, are going to have questions at all hours of every day of the year, and we need people to be able to answer those questions. So shout out to our amazing support team for being there to help us with that. That was something I never had, obviously, from the beginning. I was the support team, or my sister was the support team at an hour that, you know, suited in her schedule. And the second issue that I knew we needed to address, you know, over the course of the last almost 2 years is diversification. Because Breakaway Movement is not only a community for young white girls, and I didn't want it to be perceived as such for any longer.
Which is part of the perception. I mean, that's something that I was aware of as a dude who's in his middle 30s, who's a husband and a father and has a family. I even felt early on, especially, I was like, I'm kind of out of place here, you know, just by the optics of it. And again, I feel like the optics are just a result of the following that you built. And so when we launched, you attracted people who were most like you. And that was the biggest first wave of Breakaway Movement. I will say, in an organic and natural and not forced way, which is I think how it needs to happen, Breakaway Movement naturally through time is becoming more diverse. So there are more men, there are more people of color, there are more families, there's demographics outside of the young white girl that, again, is just a natural byproduct of time, right? And as more people reach to their markets and to who they're connected with, that happens. Are there any other intentional ways that you were pursuing diversification within the organization that would help us become something other than young white girls?
Yeah, of course. Like, you know, our core, we call them our core, our group of, you know, employees who work for Breakaway Movement full time. You know, we made the intention to hire people of color or people from different minority groups, you know, who maybe weren't involved in the organization before, because we know that these people who are working on the business full time, making these improvements around the clock, are looked up to in a sense, and they're almost spokespeople for this business and for our community. So of course that was the easiest way for, you know, us to begin to achieve the growth towards this goal.
Is there anything else that you want to share with this precious person before we wrap it up?
I think I feel really good about everything we shared, and thank you so much for watching the duration of this lengthier video. And yeah, we just value your time and your attention so much. We don't take it for granted. And if any of this resonated with you, or if you enjoyed this kind of more casual style in video and you have any positive feedback that you'd love to share, it really helps us if you share below in the comments, and obviously works favorably with the algorithm. So yeah, we'd really appreciate any likes or positive feedback you have to offer us in the comment section below.
That's great. Two things, and I'll wrap it up with this. Number one of my intentions working with Breakaway Movement is to really amplify the people of Breakaway Movement, right? Because I think there's a brand conception that completely misses out on human beings within the organization. So this is an effort towards that, much more relational, much more casual, like you're one of the homies and we're just hanging out because that's what we are doing and that's who you are. And then the second piece is, if you're with us up to this point, thank you again for your time and your attention, for your interest in the Breakaway Movement. What I've found to be the best is judge accordingly yourself. Don't take other people's judgments, other people's opinions, or maybe do take their judgments and opinions, but form your own. And what I would say the best way for you to understand the Breakaway Movement would be to join. Our subscription is $33 per month, and you can be a member of the Breakaway Movement and never affiliate with the NAGIC. So for $33 a month, you can have a full understanding of who we are, what we're on about, the work that we do, what we care about, what we value, what we practice, and then after you come to that understanding, then judge. But again, appreciate that y'all are in the process of learning more about Breakaway Movement. Thank you so much for spending this time with us, and we'll see you on the inside. Peace.